Hi, everyone. Welcome. Today, we are talking about the in between season, sometimes called the sandwich season, what it's really like to parent young adults while caring for aging parents. And for many of us, we are in that phase, or we will be soon. Maybe you're not quite there in one or the other, but you will be, and it's coming. This tension between things are changing with our kids as they're getting older, and things are changing with our parents as they are getting older and moving more toward the last season of their life or the finish line. So, I would love to hear, Alex, if you had to describe this season in one word, what would it be?
Grief. Yeah, there's a lot of letting go, which is 2 words. But the emotion behind it, I think, is grief for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to recognize that we are talking about this in between within the context of our own families and our own stories. And not everybody has a relationship with their parents, or not everybody has parents that are still living. And there are different tensions with young adult children and different ways that that's playing out. So we are going to try to talk about this in principles that are broad enough that they capture different circumstances. And at the same time, we recognize that we will for sure be talking about it within the context of our own hearts. And for me, it has been a grief. I loved having all my kids at home. I remember one mom that I've known for a long time from the neighborhood. Our oldest kids were in high school or something, and somebody joked about, what if you got pregnant again? And she looked at me and she said, well, Alex would be happy. Because everybody knew I loved having the full minivan. I also have a bigger family than most people in our neighborhood. Like, I was known as the lady who, anyway, you all get the point. So it's been an adjustment. And what has surprised me is that it's been a continued adjustment as new things have happened with either my oldest or with different kids, and that it's a constant recalibration, which has often felt like grief. Like, oh, we're changing again. This is changing again. Then with parents, it also has felt like that. Yeah. What about for you?
I've definitely felt that for sure. When you give, it's the cost of love. I've decided that grief and loss is the cost of great love. And that is the equation. And if you've loved hard, you will grieve hard, and loss will feel deep and profound. So that I'm definitely there. But as I was thinking about this, I think the word I'm going to choose is opportunity, because
that's way more positive.
Well, because I have felt the same way, but you already took
Yes.
grief. So I'm going to take opportunity,
Yes.
because I think there is both in it. I think there's grief in it, and I think there's opportunity in it. And I want to allow myself the feelings of grief and loss. And I also want to set my course forward, that there's opportunity in this for me. And both exist at the same time. And that's one of our favorite sayings. Two opposing things can be true at one time. And, I look at this whole idea that in our culture, we really do so much prize independence, and caregiving, I think within that context, can feel like a burden. But as people who love God and want to live in a different way than the world, I think it is a privilege to carry those people who once carried me. And it is an honor, and it is an opportunity. And ultimately, it's a great joy. I consider it great joy to be able to care for my parents well, and to love my kids in a new way, and to grow in my own self in that. So it's both.
And really, I have thought often about the opportunity factor as far as time, energy, attention, that as our kids need less of us, in our case, our parents have needed more. And that is an opportunity, that God has allowed for that in our family to move in that direction. And because I do not mind being a caretaker, there is opportunity there to redirect my attention, my grief, and say, but somebody needs me. And our parents, when I say our, I mean me and my husband's parents, my mom and both of his parents are still living. They need us in different ways. And that is good. It's good to be needed.
Yeah. What would you say about guilt? Like, just before we dive into each specific parenting and the changing nature of the being with young adults and then also aging parents, what would you say just overall? How does guilt play into this?
Well, if I'm really honest, sometimes I feel guilty because I want my kids to meet my needs. And I know that that's not really healthy. And I have heard, because I have talked to a lot of people in the last couple of years around caregiving for our elders, I have heard a number of people express guilt for not feeling the desire to care for their parents or their in-laws, that they feel like I should want to, and I'm going to because I'm a responsible adult, but I feel like I should want to more than I actually do. And I think we have to remember that love is not always a feeling, it's an action. And so we have to cognitively think through this process of, I am being loving, even if I'm not feeling loving right now. And that can be true for young adults too. If we're feeling very frustrated with decisions or lack of decisions, whatever the tension point is in the relationship, and to say, I'm not feeling like I did when you were 3. That's okay. As long as my actions are loving actions, I am still loving.
It's really good. It makes me think about discipline, that love is a feeling, and love is also a discipline that we practice. And we don't often think of it that way, but it is. It's a choice. Maybe that's a better way to put it, because discipline sounds hard and heavy, but it's a choice that we make. And making that choice over and over and over allows us to be aligned with the kind of person that we want to be. And at least that I want to be. I'll speak for myself. I want to be a person of love. If I look big picture at the end of my life, what do I want people to say? And that is one of mine. That's one of my markers. I want people to say that she loved well. And so what are my choices going to be then? My daily choices around that.
How does guilt play out in your, maybe that's not the right, maybe that's a little too personal, but talk to me about guilt during this season of life. How about that? I'll leave it up to you to decide how you want to answer that.
Well, it's interesting because I wouldn't say I'm naturally prone to guilt. It's not something that, some people I think are naturally more prone to that, and personalities. And I wouldn't say mine is. So maybe the way I would see it as, how am I intentionally making those choices? And how my tendency is going to be to actually neglect my own needs and maybe abandon myself in what I need before I abandon someone else. And so I tend to actually err on the other side.
Well, I do think it's important to bring up this idea of caring for everyone else before we have our own needs met. And there may be, I don't want to put this on you, but there may be some feelings of guilt of saying, I need this, and setting that boundary. That means you can't offer somebody something. And I hear that a lot from women our age of, I am so exhausted. I'm in my 50s and I've been caring for people for 30 years now. And I don't know that I can do it anymore, or I don't know who I am anymore. So I think that's important to bring up. And for all of us to explore if we do feel like we have that feeling sometimes, I mean, I know I do for sure. Is there something in there that we need to look at about why we aren't allowing our needs to be a priority?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I actually am really trying to work on is naming and being okay with, like, if I need more sleep, like being okay with that and making sure that happens. Or I can't meet that need right now. Cause I mean, that is hard for me to say. Like it is a hard thing. And I get it. It's part of my Enneagram, but let's dive in a little bit so this is a 2-part series. And today we're diving into what's it really like parenting young adults. That's what we're talking about. And that really is the important word. What's it really like? So let's dive in. And next week, we're going to cover caring for aging parents. But right now, let's dive into parenting young adults. Alex, what is this season like for you emotionally, really?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned grief. And I think there's grief of a few things. There's grief of the way things used to be, right? I'm grieving that we're changing. I might be grieving control. I used to be able to be the captain of the ship for everyone, and I'm not anymore. But maybe grieving how things are going too, like realizing my expectations were not realistic and I need to readjust them, or maybe they just were off course.
So wait, what does that mean? Like, I know, I mean, we're trying to talk about things without calling out specifics of our own families that might be sensitive, but could you give a little more to that? Like, what does that mean?
Well, for me, I often don't know I have expectations until they're not met. And then I start feeling angry or resentful or sad. And I think, okay, where is this coming from? Because whatever this person just did, the information they gave me shouldn't necessarily create the feelings I'm having. Like there's a disconnect between my response and what just happened. And so it is a recognition that, oh, I didn't realize I had expectations around that. And I would say, let's just do a hypothetical. Somebody doesn't want to come home for a holiday that they've always come home for. And that can have just feelings that I expected that. And maybe I never actually articulated that. Maybe I didn't even realize that that was an expectation. But because I'm having some grief around it, some disappointment, I'm needing to then examine the expectation and say, where did that come from? And so there's a lot of just peeling. I feel like it's just peeling back. But then it gets to some super core emotions of wanting to be loved and wanting to have a place in this world.
It's so self-aware of you, Alex.
Well,
so self-aware of you. It really is. You know, one of the things that I learned in my DISC training that's been so helpful for me is this idea that all frustrations are a violation of expectations. That's like a mic drop, right? And that's just like, that is so interesting when you really think about it. And they walk you through these questions. And some of the questions are, so was the expectation communicated? Which means you have to know what it is. You have it.
Right.
The second question is, was it agreed upon?
That's right.
And then the third question is it fair?
That's right.
Like, is that a fair expectation to have on people? And then the last one is going forward, like, what's your agreement going to be? And I just think it's, wow, if we could walk through that process with our own selves, with the people around us, actually, that means we'd have to name our expectations. We'd have to communicate them. We'd have to see if they agree with them and evaluate if it's fair. Like that is a game-changing formula right there.
Yeah. And if we think about it within the context of young adults, that is a really healthy way to allow them to have a voice in a relationship where they maybe don't know how to have a voice because they've been our child and now they're an adult. And I want to allow my kids to be adults, and it's been a clunky process. And it's still, I still have a 14-year-old, so they're not all grown. But my first two, it's a clunky process. And so I really like that. I would say, I don't want to just be negative. We feel a lot of pride, Derek and I do, in who our kids are becoming and who they are. And that feels like affirmation that the time we've invested in them, it was well spent. Now, I also never want to take credit for them because I don't want to take blame when they're in prison. And so they are still their own people and they make their own decisions. And we're really proud of the macro of who they are and the trajectory that we see them in. But probably the biggest thing for me is feeling this untetheredness in purpose. And that's where I have felt surprised that it's continued to come in waves with new markers and new milestones. Like, oh, I thought I'd work through this. Oh, not totally. But then that there are, with that untethering, I do see the windows of opportunity opening. So it's not just a negative thing to feel that. There is a freedom in it too. A little confusing for me because I don't feel totally like I've got a lot of direction. But I do want to see it as an opportunity for me to be more present with other people. So I mentioned I went to the hospital to visit some people yesterday. I told Krista this before we started recording. I could do that because my youngest, who still needs me to drive, was at basketball practice until 5. Like, her busier life is offering me more windows of opportunity.
Absolutely.
Well, what is it for you? You are farther along in the parenting young adults than I am, with a married young person, and all 4 are gone most of the year.
Yep.
How is it for you these days emotionally?
Well, I will say pretty good. Like, I'm feeling pretty good in this season. I will have waves, and that's where grief is nonlinear, because I will have waves where I get very sad and I don't really know when they're going to hit. It's interesting. But for the most part, a huge part of why I think I'm doing well is because the window of opportunity has allowed me to lean in to some new purposes in my life. And I have kind of grabbed those opportunities with both hands. And I'm really enjoying, it's bringing me to life in a lot of ways because it's developing new skills in me. And that personal development and growth has really helped me and has been provision, I think, from the Lord of this season for me. And so I see personal growth and development as a huge part of why I'm thriving in this season. And that has surprised me. But it has allowed me to better emotionally handle the loss.
Yeah.
And it's not distraction, because I do feel it when I'm sad. And I am acknowledging my feelings in the midst of it. It's not distraction. It's just that I feel like I'm coming alive in some new ways. God has planted some new things in me. And that feels life-giving and like his provision. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful for that. Yeah. I will say that I was just having a conversation with a friend yesterday. I think part of the discipline of this season of like kind of real talk of raising young adults is not going to the what ifs. What if nobody lives by me? What if I don't have grandkids? What if I do have grandkids, what if they don't live near us? Any of them. What if they don't find a partner? What if they don't find a really good partner? What if they don't have a good job? What if they don't find a career that they love? What if, I mean, you could just go on and on and on and on with the what ifs, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that can cause some serious dysregulation, I think, in this season. When my friend and I were talking about it, we both were getting tears in our eyes. And these are things that are imaginary. Like we don't even know if they're going to happen or not. And we're crying about them now. And it's just, when you look at it from 30,000 feet, you're like, oh my gosh. But in real time, in our hearts, those things feel very real.
Yeah. And as a professional what ifer, I think Enneagram 6s, we got a corner on that market. We can do it out of a sense of, I'm going to be prepared so I can help them. So we can justify it. And I don't know that there is justification for it, because God does not ask us to worry about things that have not yet happened. And yet we're really good at it. And it can be so all-consuming. But I was laughing when you started to say that, because I would say less than 2 hours ago, Derek was like, let's not go down the worst case scenario path on this. Let's just assume she's not going to do that. And I was like, okay, because I really did. I like laid down okay, here's the worst case scenario, because I just want to lay it out there. He's like, I'm going to just assume that's not going to happen. So yeah, it is. It's a resetting of the mind over and over and over again.
Yeah. And the reality is that, I think that's what's funny, is the reality is that life usually doesn't turn out ever the way that we think it will ultimately. Like there may be some things that kind of seem familiar from what you thought would happen, but for the most part, most of life is a great surprise. And so why we're trying to figure it out and predict, it's like those people that try and predict the end of the world or whatever. Like they just think, you don't know. And we don't know. And so let's just trust that God gives us provision when we get there. Whatever it is, he does not give grace until the moment, but trust that he will give us the grace for whatever it is in that moment. For that moment, he won't give it to us ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, really is letting go, right? So what does letting go mean to you, and what does it not mean? What are you holding on to tightly, and what are you letting go of right now?
Yeah. I think, it's interesting, when Eric was in residency, surgical residency, which is so hard. I remember having this revelation that I needed to keep my heart close to Eric while fully being okay, being separated from him and standing on my own 2 feet and being like completely independent. So it was this weird, it was just the season of life. He was never home. And I had to be independent enough that I could be okay, like truly okay, but still not shut my heart off from him. And interestingly, it feels a little similar. It's like that I'm very connected, but I'm giving them breathing room. And it's so healthy for them to see that I'm okay.
Yes.
Like letting go means I really am cultivating my own self in such a way that I'm okay. And they're seeing that I'm okay. And that then frees them to live their own life.
Yeah, I struggle with that, because it's this balance of like honesty. I want them to know I'm sad and I miss you. And also, I'm really glad you're doing what you want to do. And it's that walking that tightrope, that tension of you always have a place to come home to, and we will always welcome you back. And you have total freedom to go do whatever it is you feel called with your life to do.
Yes.
And we probably, as parents, tend toward one or the other. Like I tend toward come home, but I have friends who tend toward go fly, like go have your adventure. And I want that for my kids too. So I have to be disciplined to fall heavier on that side than I naturally do, and to pull back from the I miss you texts, which I send a lot.
Right.
It sounds like I'm really pathetic. I'm really not that pathetic. No, but my kids know that I'm always happy that they're here, and I just have to be disciplined in reminding them I'm also happy you're doing what you're doing.
I think that's a good word, Alex. Like whatever side we fall on, to try and bolster up that other side and really communicate that. Because I think our communication is key in this. Like, what are we communicating with our young adults? Are we communicating that we're really needy and we're almost guilt tripping them? Or are we communicating the opposite? Like we don't touch base enough and we're not involved enough in their daily lives. So it is a interesting like push-pull thing. I do think of Philippians 1:6, where that verse says, "He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it." And I think this whole idea is of letting go. The reason I like this verse and the letting go question is because I think it's all about trust. Do I trust God to do the work that he's going to do in my kids, to lead them on the paths that he has for them? That is not my path. And that path doesn't always lead home to me. Sadly, as I wanted to, their life is not my life. The plans that God has for me are different than the plans he has for my kids. Do I let go and let God have his own journey for them? Because he's working on completing the work he began in them the moment they were created and fashioned in the womb. And that unique path is for them. And that helps me to let go because I want that for my kids. I want them to do the work that he has for them, not that I have for them. I mean, ultimately, if I can zoom back, that really helps me. So how do you stay connected without communicating control, like you're being controlling?
Well, I try to be disciplined in asking questions that I would ask a friend when making plans, especially because that is an area, I think, of transition for moms that are used to making the group plans to say, does this work for you? Would you be able to do it this way? And then also in setting some boundaries. I can't do that you're asking me to do, right? Whatever it is. But I can, and then say the things that you can do. It's, moving away from being in charge. And so if I consider how would they feel respected right now, like if I use respect as the thing I'm aiming for,
I like that.
Then I tend to do a better job, for sure.
I love that. That's a really good question. How can they feel respected? I would also add that I think what we say, and especially what we don't say, is really important. I think we can communicate control without trying, and maybe that's not our intent, but impact and intent are not always the same.
True.
And we can communicate through what we share that can feel like we're trying to be controlling. And maybe, for example, maybe there's something like, let's say that a child's in a new relationship or a new job even, or whatever is taking them away, and they're less communicative or whatever. Even for us, like, how are we communicating about that? Because ultimately, like, who should we go to share? Like, it's okay if we're feeling sad, but who are we sharing that with? And where are the appropriate places for us as moms or dads to share those things? maybe it's not with our child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because then maybe that feels controlling to them.
Right.
If we're talking to them about those things.
Right. And it gets back to that feeling of, then I need to take care of my mom, that she's not okay if I know that she's very sad. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
What about anxiety? How do you manage your anxiety when they are making decisions that you might not?
Mm-hmm. Well, I pray for them, but I want to say probably more I pray for myself because I do believe that God is with them, but I am recognizing a lot of places, opportunities, if you will, for growth in me. And so I pray that God will help me and refine me and meet me in those places, and that He will meet my needs, and that my kids, I won't turn to them to meet my needs, because I don't think that's healthy. And if it's, if there's a decision that I don't love, that's how I often will say, I don't love that you're choosing that. I have to ask myself, is this my own preference or is this truly harmful to them? So tattoos would be an example. Like, that's my preference, is that you don't have tattoos. It's just my personal preference, and take it or leave it. But it's not harmful to you. So that, what bucket does it really fall in? And then if it's truly harmful, then because I love you, I'm going to say something. Then it just gets to the how.
And the how matters so much. Okay, so Alex, what would you say, just as we're looking at wanting to follow a biblical model, what does honoring your adult child's independence look like?
Well, I thought of the verses at the beginning of Philippians chapter 1, where I don't know that people often think of this in terms of their kids, but every time I think of you, I thank God for you. I have joy in my heart every time I ask God to help you. I want them to have a sense that I am delighted with them. And no matter their age, and also no matter what they're choosing, God delights in us no matter what we're choosing, because He loves us and we are His children. And so I want to reflect that back to my kids. And so that's what first came to mind when I thought of what scripture shows the heart posture. And I want to be grateful for them. And I also want to be glad to bring them to God every time. Like, it is my joy to pray for you. It is my honor to pray for you as your mom. And then James 1:5 also came to mind. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. This is about praying for myself here. Who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Because there's just a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I'm over here being human, and I need you, God. And so He says, okay, ask me, and I'll give you what you need. Maybe not what you want, but what you need.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Those are so good. The only one I would add is Ecclesiastes 3:1, or that whole section in Ecclesiastes. And you have read it before, and I love it. It's, there is a season for everything. And the context of this is, it was written by the teacher, and that's often identified as Solomon. And it addresses this human search for meaning in a world where everything is vanity, or temporary. And it's this whole idea that life isn't chaotic, which we often feel like it is, especially because the world is chaotic, but that God orchestrates seasons and times. And there is a season for our kids to grow up. There is a time for them to become more independent. And for us to fight that season, it doesn't feel James 1:5. It doesn't feel wise, because this is the season actually for them to go on their own way and their own path. It helps me when I think of it in that Ecclesiastes framework of, there is a time and this is their season. So let them be in that season.
Yeah.
Don't be so nostalgic and hold on to what was. Okay, well, I thought we could end today with just a few interesting tidbits that might help as people are navigating parenting young adults. So, studies show that personal parental warmth and reduced control predict stronger adult-child attachment and resilience. Isn't that interesting? So be warm. The lesson there is be warm and don't control. And ultimately, your young adults will be stronger for it and they will be more resilient because of that. So if I can just keep those two things like in my head, warmth and freedom. Maybe if I frame it in that way instead of less control, warmth and freedom. Those are the two things.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I think is noteworthy is differentiation theory, which is that healthy families allow both connection and individuality. So what does that mean for you, Alex?
Yeah, that you have a place where you belong and you get to be your own person. You get to have your own opinions and make your own decisions. So I'm thinking right now about the teenagers we still have in our home, that we try to allow them to have their individuality within the parameters of our house rules. But you're allowed to disagree with us on things. That doesn't mean you're going to get your way, but you're allowed to be your own person. What about for you?
Yeah, I love that. I think that is so true. And this idea that you get to explore. I mean, one of the things, there's a lot of research. Jeffrey Arnett is the guy who specifically studied this, but ages 18 to 29, that is labeled in psychology as emerging adulthood, which means it's marked by identity exploration and instability. Instability is the word there, I think. But allowing them, I think what it means for me is I'm going to stay connected to them in the midst of their exploration and possibly in that instability. It may feel, because I'm in a different place in life, my season is different. So I'm leaning towards stable. They may be leaning toward instability, and that's okay. Stay connected. There's a few other tools that I think are helpful. One is, shifting from unsolicited advice to consent-based input. So that simply, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but that simply means we ask, would you like my thoughts on this? Do you want my opinion? And actually allowing them the freedom to say yes or no. And then practicing the 24-hour rule before responding to triggering news. Just feels wise. And then maybe this is my favorite one. Practice saying, I trust you to figure this out.
Yeah. That's really empowering, I think, to say, I believe you have what it takes to make this decision. Because I think a lot of times when our young adults come to us with questions, sometimes they want to hear from us, but often I think they just want to hear, we believe you've got it. We believe that you're not going to go wrong, that you have inside of you what it takes to make this decision.
Yeah, so good. Okay, well, next week we'll be back with caring for aging parents in this sandwich season, in this in-between. So thank you for being with us today. We're so grateful, and we will see you next week.